In 1996, a man stepped into the ring 90 seconds later. He walked out with $75 million. That was the fastest anyone had ever made money in the history of professional sports. But 9 years later, that same man sat in a courtroom and filed for bankruptcy. And right now, I'm going to tell you the part nobody ever tells. Not how he spent the money, but how he knew he was being robbed and did nothing. Let me take you back to Brooklyn, New York, 1980. There was a 13-year-old kid. No father, no money, no future. He survived by picking pockets, shoplifting, sleeping in buildings that cops wouldn't even bother entering. His name was Mike Tyson, but there was one thing this kid had that the rest of the world didn't: 2 fists at 20 years old. Mike Tyson became the heavyweight champion of the world, the youngest in boxing history. Opponents stepped into the ring with Tyson, and they already knew they were going to lose. The only question was how many seconds it would take. And then Don King showed up, the wild hair, the expensive suit, the smile of a man who had already decided everything before you even sat down. He looked at Tyson and saw what? Not a champion. He saw a money machine with no owner. Over a 20-year career, Mike Tyson made $400 million. Just stop for a second and let that number sink in. $400 million. So what did Tyson do with that money? He bought 3 mansions at the same time, over $30 million total, not because he needed 3 homes, but because he could. Rolls-Royce, Bentley, Ferrari, lined up in the garage like a parking lot. Some of them went entire months without being driven once. Diamond jewelry, for himself, for friends, for people he met exactly one time in his life. And then he bought tigers, not 1, 3 real Bengal tigers, living inside his house. The cost of keeping those 3 tigers wasn't a few $100,000 a year like most articles say. It was $4,000 a day, $1.4 million every single year, just to feed tigers. Every month, Tyson spent $230,000 on personal expenses alone, not counting real estate, not counting investments, just day-to-day spending. He kept over 200 people on his payroll. They followed him everywhere. They laughed at everything he said. They told him he was great, and many of them, he couldn't even remember their names. Now, this is the part that almost every video about Tyson completely skips over. There was a man named Mitch Green, a fighter, who lost to Tyson in the ring back in 1986. But after that fight, he started paying attention. He looked at Tyson's contracts. He looked at how Don King operated, and he saw it immediately. Mitch Green warned Tyson, directly, clearly, that Don King was skimming his money, that the contracts were written in a way that Tyson would never see the full amount he was owed. That if this kept going, he would end up with nothing. Tyson didn't listen, not because he didn't believe it, but because he didn't want to believe it. Because Don King was the only person in Tyson's life who made him feel important, who made him feel protected, who made him feel like he was no longer just that nobody kid from Brooklyn. And sometimes, people choose the feeling of safety over the truth. Now I need you to stop, because this is where the real story begins. Most people tell this story one way. Don King is the villain. Tyson is the victim, and we feel sorry for Tyson. But the truth is not that simple. In 1995, years before the bankruptcy, a lawyer named John Horn sat down with Tyson and laid out all the evidence, every number, every contract, every transaction, proving exactly how much Don King had taken from him. Tyson read all of it. Tyson understood all of it. And then what did Tyson do? He signed a new contract with Don King and kept working with him for years after that. Why? Because Don King, even while skimming, was still making him money. And Tyson needed that money, not to save, but to spend, immediately, every single day. Tyson was not entirely a victim. He was a man who knew he was being robbed and accepted it because he had no other plan. And that is the real tragedy here. Not that Don King took his money, but that Tyson never built a life that didn't depend on Don King. Tyson didn't go broke because he was stupid. He went broke because of 3 traps that millions of people are falling into right now, just at a smaller scale. Trap 1, the money arrived faster than the mindset. Tyson went from nothing to 400 million too fast. The human brain is not wired to handle sudden wealth. People who come into large amounts of money quickly tend to spend 3 to 5 times faster than they accumulate. They don't buy because they need to. They buy to prove something. Tyson didn't buy tigers because he loved animals. He bought tigers because tigers said something that words couldn't say. That the kid who used to steal on the streets of Brooklyn was gone. That's the psychology of proving yourself. And it costs more than any bad investment ever could. Trap 2. The circle of people who feed off you. When you have money, you will never run out of friends. Oh, that is the most brutal rule of wealth. Tyson had 200 people on payroll. How many of them actually cared about him? The answer became very clear in 2003 when he filed for bankruptcy. The crowd disappeared faster than the money. The number of people around you when you have money is not a measure of how much they care. It's a measure of how attractive your wallet is. Trap 3. Handing complete financial control to someone else. Tyson didn't read his contracts, didn't check the books, had no idea where his money was going or who was touching it. There is one financial rule I want you to carry with you forever. Nobody cares about your money more than you do. Nobody. Not your accountant, not your lawyer, not your closest family member. Only you. And now, I want to say something directly to you. You just heard the entire story of Mike Tyson. You know exactly where he went wrong. You can point out every single mistake with total clarity. But I have one question for you. Last month, you knew you were overspending, and you kept spending anyway. Last month, you knew you needed to start saving, and you still haven't started. Last month, you knew someone wasn't being completely honest with you about money, and you looked the other way. So how are you different from Tyson? Tyson knew Don King was taking his money, and let it happen. Because changing was hard, and staying the same was easy. You know you need to change your financial situation, and you haven't done it yet, for the exact same reason. The difference between you and Tyson is not the amount of money. The difference is that you are hearing this story right now, and Tyson never did. So what are you going to do with that? Tyson today, at 58 years old, is calmer, more humble, and far wiser than the man who once kept tigers in his house. He said something once that I haven't been able to forget. That he once had everything, and also had nothing, because he never truly understood what money was. $400 million. Gone. Not because of bad luck, not because the market crashed, not because of any crisis, but because nobody ever taught a poor kid from Brooklyn that earning money and keeping money are two completely different skills. School didn't teach you this, and most parents don't know enough to teach it either. But you just heard it. The question is no longer whether you know. The question is, what are you going to do with it? If this video said something to you, share it with someone you think needs to hear this story. Because sometimes, one story at the right moment